The Trapper, Dead by Daylight's mascot, the originator, the first ever killer, Jason Voorhees' #1 fanboy, often considered the worst killer in Dead by Daylight, yet being pasted all over it, drowning in cosmetics and promotion. Evan McMillan is the entity's favorite fail son. The Trapper is an interesting character when it comes to killers for his power specifically, that can vary drastically depending on the situation and the players encountering it. Against a lot of the survivor population, the power can be considered far too slow and easy to counter if you just open your eyes and stop trying to see what kind of shape that cloud looks like. But a lot of solo queue players are imaginative people who are often lost in daydream, which results in a lot of screams and bloody ankles. But when it comes to survive with friends, what can be a surprise down to a survivor who had no idea that window they're vaulting over has a trap underneath can be completely nullified and disregarded with a simple, "Hey, I saw him put a trap over there. Make sure you disarm it when you're running by." What can be a nightmare that blocks every exit they take for some survivors is just a stroll in the park where all the heroin needles are missing the actual part that can hurt you. Lots of people call for Trapper buffs. Rarely you would ever hear someone claim he needs a nerf. And when they do a quick check of their profile, it plays out usually the same, where you can see that they just reached their first 100 hours of playing Dead by Daylight. Which would seem like a lot in most games, but in Dead by Daylight there's this weird phenomenon where hours played seem to amount to a lot less than one would expect. People who have 1,000 hours feel like they would only have 50 if it was another game. Tangent aside, the only real part of the Trapper's kit which can seem even remotely overpowered besides resorting to some, cheesy tactics like, burning an RPD offering, which a lot of Trappers seem to do these days, are his two iridescents. Bloody Coil, which injures any survivor disarming a trap, and Iridescent Stone, which automatically resets a trap every 30 seconds. Don't be surprised when you find encountering a Trapper who isn't wearing a default cosmetic ends up defaulting to these two add-ons. Bloody Coil is a great add-on that does not ride the line into too powerful, but still massively increases the Trapper's ability to control a match. Survivors are given a choice to disarm what could be a very dangerous trap at the cost of their health, but if they never heal, they could just disarm all the traps they wish, living recklessly like a binge eater with a tapeworm, without worry. Besides that impending machete slash across the back, but even in that weakened state, the Trapper still needs to catch you and beat you on a tile, likely fairly, unless you run into another trap, but that wouldn't have mattered much anyways. You would still go down to it or take a hit anyways. The only time this can be unfair or unmanageable is when it comes to the fortified and heavily defended basement that resembles something like Fort Knox.
Thou shalt show no fear. In the mighty eyes of the Lord I shall hold my post. This is where I make my stand.
The Trapper and making basement saves have really never played well together. So in that case, the Bloody Coil is more like a final nail in the coffin instead of a railroad spike to the chest. The same cannot be said about Iridescent Stone. When I think of necessary evil, I'm regularly haunted by the image of opening an exit gate only to have a trap arm under my feet. What are mere moments feel like hours, knowing that there's nothing I can do but finish opening this door and embracing the impending sacrifice waiting for me on the other side. I say necessary evil as Trapper is such a slow killer at times that Iridescent Stone can feel a lot more like a quality of life improvement over an overpowered add-on. But that doesn't make it any less evil. So it is a shame that the Trapper only has two options when it comes to resetting traps without him having to use his hands personally to do it. So you're probably not going to be surprised when this add-on is completely changed when we do cover the add-ons. Because with the upcoming changes, I suggest the necessary part of necessary evil will no longer exist, and it's just left being evil. And I prefer to leave evil to those people who walk slowly and in the middle of sidewalks. But strong add-ons aside, when we are left with the Trapper in his purest form, a slow snowball killer who needs to rely on the incompetence and ignorance of survivors, more so than most killers in the roster. And I need to state this because there's always a few people in the comments who talk about how they main a killer and basically never lose with them. If you can't 9 times out of 10 3 to 4k with this character, that's just a skill issue. They go on 100 plus 4k win streaks because they're bored. So there is no issue with the killer, it's just you. And of course I'm exaggerating, but sadly not by a lot. Every single killer in Dead by Daylight can get a 4k. Any killer can get you wins even in tight situations. It's just miles in distance between the tools to execute on those difficult situations between some killers compared to others. It's a lot like rock climbing. Sure, you can rock climb without a safety harness. You can even do pretty well without it. But you will be missing it when you do slip and fall several hundred feet into your entity Hunger's end screen. Oh, and you also washed your hands in canola oil before climbing for some reason, you weirdo. When people talk about how to make Trapper better, how to buff Trapper, how to drag him from the pits of disgrace, we usually get solutions that don't actually solve what feels bad about the Trapper, what is annoying to do, and what you have to keep in mind throughout the match, but rather just massive buffs that alleviate these pains a little bit at the sacrifice of making survivors literally feel like they have to crawl through glass when they decide to play a match of Dead by Daylight. So let's go through some of the biggest complaints about Trapper and see what trend comes up. Early game setup and going out of your way to find and collect traps all over the map. If you're not chasing, gens are flying. That's a simple fact. So even though you are making progress for later in the match, you are still permanently losing time and generators that even if you do manage to snowball well, can sometimes just be too much to be able to slow down in enough time, even with constant hook trades. A lot of the times you will find yourself in a match without the OP add-ons, having a couple traps likely in the corners of the map that you just don't have time to pick up or even arm, losing out on a bit of your power. Another complaint being chases. A lot of maps have a lot of pallets, and sometimes you can get decent dead zones and catch a survivor at an inopportune time. But the biggest trend you will see while trying to chase a survivor with Trapper is the choice that needs to be made. Try and win a loop or set a trap down, and very likely they will run away and head to another loop not far away. You have some haste to catch up, but then the same thing can happen all over again. Not saying this isn't fair for survivors or anything, but it does feel bad. If the survivors are good, half decent even, they know how to chain loops, and when and where to run. That even when you do catch them, they have used up a lot of your time, and as some people say, chase time is gen time. A third big complaint is when you have traps in a place where they can come in handy, or a survivor would accidentally run into it, but it's been disarmed, and by the time you get there to reset it, it doesn't matter for the current chase, or you do go out of your way to walk to reset it when you could be chasing a survivor. So how do we fix these problems, or make them significantly less of a pain point than they are now, without turning the Trapper into an S-tier misery farm? 2 new simple abilities to help arm traps from a distance, and another to get traps in a spot you would like them without having to sacrifice a chase. This is the Trapper Rework. The Trapper will have 2 options when it comes to taking a bear trap from their inventory. He can perform the usual standing in place and setting a trap down on the ground and arming it, making it an immediate danger to any survivor who would touch it. And his second ability, his new ability, Trap Toss. While moving, the Trapper can underhand toss a bear trap a short distance, where it will land on the ground and be unarmed. No longer is the Trapper forced to go through the whole setting animation to place a trap where they may want it later. But now you can quickly toss a bear trap without disrupting the momentum during a chase, but at the cost that the trap is not a threat as is, being unarmed. So even while chasing, the Trapper can make progress in building his web for later, and maybe even getting it down while it happens. The second new ability, and really the only other big change besides some number tweaks and some add-ons, is that of entity-assisted arming. The Trapper within 32 meters of himself is given the option to arm bear traps at a distance. bending down as he does regularly, but seeing an artificial projection of the trap he sets, while the distant trap he is arming has the entity's arms tear into the realm and slowly open that bear trap for the trapper. This long range reset comes at a cost though, where it usually takes 2.5 seconds total to set or arm a bear trap. Doing so from a distance will double the time it takes, turning 2.5 seconds into 5, making it much more efficient at times to actually walk up to the trap to arm it, but when you really need to, don't have to go out of your way to rearm a trap that may have been tampered not too long ago. And just to keep it fair, after a trap has been disarmed by survivors, the trapper is unable to rearm it from a distance for 10 seconds. Since the trapper will be able to keep more of his traps active in a threat while being able to keep chases a lot shorter on average, I believe it's fair that the trapper's reliance on quantity of traps is no longer necessary, and will make going against him incredibly tough in the wrong way. So now the total amount of traps in the trial is reduced from 8 to 6. But don't worry, you still start with 2 in your inventory, leaving a total of 10 bear traps the trapper can make use of during the trial. So when it comes to other number changes, I don't think any are really necessary, maybe making the disarm time for survivors a little shorter, since resetting add-ons will still likely be very popular, but other than that, I think the trapper pretty much behaves the exact same as he did before in all the other ways. When it comes to add-ons, similar to the trapper in this rework, a lot stays the same, but there are a few massive changes. Bear oil, this is unchanged. Makeshift wrap, this is unchanged. Padded jaws. Bear traps immobilize survivors without damaging them. Survivors will only be able to free themselves on the 6th escape attempt. Without another add-on, this is around 10 to 11 seconds. Trapper gloves, this is unchanged. 4-coil spring kit, this is unchanged. Coffee grounds, this is unchanged. Lengthened jaws. The moment a survivor is injured by a bear trap, they are inflicted with deep wounds. Deep wounds will slowly drain while attempting escape from a bear trap. Serrated jaws. Survivors injured by a bear trap suffer from the hemorrhage and mangled status effect for 80 seconds. Wax brick. This is unchanged. Fastening tools. This is unchanged. Rusted jaws. Survivors injured by a bear trap suffer from the broken status effect for 60 seconds. Secondary coil. This is unchanged. Tar bottle. Bear traps armed from a distance cannot be disarmed for 5 seconds. Trapper bag. This is unchanged. Honing stone. This is unchanged. Oily coil. 10 seconds after tossing an unarmed bear trap, it will become armed. Tension spring. After a generator is repaired, all traps in the trial become armed and cannot be disarmed for 20 seconds. Trapper sack. This is unchanged. Bloody coil. This is unchanged. Iridescent stone. While the trapper is holding no traps, he gains the ability to place 3 phantom traps. Phantom traps will spring as normal when survivors walk over them, but won't damage or snare survivors. Whenever a phantom trap is sprung or disarmed by a survivor, their aura is revealed for 8 seconds. So that was the Trapper Rework, a highly suggested one since the very first video, but one I constantly kept coming up with ideas for and quickly disliking and scrapping everything, till I randomly thought of these 2 abilities recently and kept thinking about them and really liking the idea of playing with them. Trapper is one of my more played killers, not like a top pick or anything, but one of those few killers where I pick them up every once in a while and spend the day or a couple hours playing several matches. This keeps that identity I enjoy playing so much while tightening up the screws of the power that keep it all together. While I do think it would be more difficult for survivors, as making any killer stronger will always do, it does it in a way that still leaves up that counterplay there always was for survivors, without making the traps themselves more frustrating to deal with. Just keep watch and know that traps can be armed from a distance and you'll be okay. Plus the removal of the add-on I really despised going against, while making a part of it base kit in a significantly healthier way, I hope, was a big plus. So what do you think? Do you like this approach for making the Trapper feel better to play while making him stronger? Or is this too much and the Trapper should get some other buff to make him feel better to play? I enjoy the comments on the rework videos specifically because a lot of viewers leave insightful ideas that really show me things I might have missed, or ways to make the rework even better, so let us know. Anyways, if you like this video and want to see more like it, please leave a like and maybe even subscribe. A second to you and a ton of help to me. Thank you all for watching. My name is Dusteroo, and I will see you all real soon. Bye bye.